You know, when you think of Carnival, you probably picture the world's biggest party, right? Feathers, festivities, non-stop music. But what if I told you that hiding beneath all of that, there's a secret history, something way older, and honestly, a lot more primal than you could ever imagine? Let's dig into it.
So you see this mask and you think, okay, fun, celebration, a little disguise. But what if there's more to it? Like, way more. What if this wasn't just for a party? What if this was actually a tool? A tool for a forgotten ritual that was so important it might have literally saved entire communities from disappearing. Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the official story. You know, the one you'll find in most textbooks. It's all very neat, very tidy. It makes perfect sense. Or doesn't.
So, the story you usually hear about the word Carnevale seems pretty simple. It's supposed to come from two Latin words, carne, which means meat or flesh, and vale, which means goodbye. Put them together, you get goodbye meat. It's the last big blowout before the 40 days of fasting for Lent. You know, a nice, clean, straightforward Christian explanation. Case closed, right?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. What if that simple goodbye meat thing is just a cover story? A rebranding, if you will, of something far more ancient, something deeply pagan, with roots in the raw power of nature itself.
And that brings us to this other theory. It's a bit controversial, for sure, but it's also incredibly compelling. It's a theory that says Carnival has nothing to do with Christian piety and everything to do with an ancient god of fertility and chaos.
Okay, so check this out. Here are the two stories, side by side. On one hand, you have goodbye meat. Simple. But on the other hand, you have this pretty chilling alternative, the flesh of Baal. See, this theory says that second word isn't vale, it's Baal, a name of an ancient, powerful god, often shown as a bull. And boom, just like that, the meaning completely flips. It's not about saying goodbye to something, it's a primal celebration of the flesh.
So naturally, this brings up the big question, right? The one that's going to drive this whole investigation. To understand this hidden history, we have to understand its star player. Who or what was Baal?
All right, let's build a profile. Just like in any good mystery, we've got to get to know our prime suspect, this ancient, powerful deity whose influence might just be hiding in plain sight in our modern parties.
So first off, the name. Baal wasn't really a name like John or Steve. It was more like a title. It comes from an old Semitic root that just means Lord or Master. Any really powerful local god could be called the Baal of that area. Basically, the big boss, the owner of the land and its people.
So what was Baal's deal? Well, he was the god of all the big, life-giving stuff. Rain, thunder, and, this is key, fertility. He was basically the personification of raw, untamed nature. And his number one symbol? The bull. Makes sense, right? It's a perfect icon of strength, power, and procreation. And how did people worship him? Pretty much how you'd expect, with huge feasts and sacrifices.
Now here's a really interesting piece of evidence. There's this quote from the Bible describing the worship of the golden calf, which, by the way, was a famous stand-in for Baal, and it paints a picture that's going to sound really familiar. The people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. I mean, eat, drink, and rise up to play. Doesn't that sound exactly like the wild, uninhibited, chaotic energy of Carnival?
Okay, so if Baal was this awesome, revered god of life and fertility, how in the world did he end up as a bad guy, a symbol of sin? How does the Lord of the Sky fall so hard that his name basically becomes another word for a demon? Well, his downfall was a very deliberate, step-by-step process. Back in ancient Canaan, he was a good guy, the god of life-giving rain. Then in biblical Israel, he gets a total rebrand. He becomes the golden calf, the poster child for idolatry and sin. Later on, his name even gets twisted, from Baal-Zebul, meaning Lord of the Dwelling, to Baal-Zebub, which means Lord of the Flies. And by the time we get to medieval Europe, the transformation is complete. He's Beelzebub, one of the top bosses in hell.
And here's the thing you have to understand. This was no accident. Turning Baal into a demon was a full-on strategy. It was a way for the new religious order to stop out the old pagan traditions, especially those wild, chaotic festivals that were all about celebrating the flesh right before a period of supposed spiritual purity.
Okay, and all of this brings us back to the final piece of our puzzle, the mask. We've connected Carnival to this ancient god of fertility, but it turns out the mask itself might have played a really shocking and honestly a super practical role in all this.
I mean, really think about it. It's not just about a fun disguise. At the core of Carnival, especially the old school versions, is total anonymity. Why was it so important for people to completely, totally erase who they were?
Okay, get ready for this, because here's the core of this whole wild theory. It suggests Carnival wasn't just a party, it was a ritual for survival. Think about it. For a small, isolated village back then, infertility wasn't just sad, it was a death sentence for the whole community. This theory proposes that Carnival acted as a kind of genetic randomizer to make sure the community could keep going.
And the logic behind this ritual is, well, it's brutally practical. Step 1. The problem. The community is facing extinction because of infertility. Step 2. The solution. You create a sanctioned, sacred ritual of anonymous procreation. Step 3. The tools. Everyone wears masks and gloves to completely erase their identity. And step 4. The outcome. The community's gene pool gets a much-needed boost, and society doesn't collapse.
And these tools were absolutely critical. The mask, that's obvious, right? It hides your face, your social status, your name. But the gloves, now that is a fascinating detail. They literally erase your identity by touch. No one can feel a wedding ring or a scar or know the texture of your skin. You become a completely anonymous vessel for the community's will to survive.
So you see the genius of it? The social loophole this ritual created was absolutely crucial. Any baby conceived during this time wasn't considered the result of an affair, of adultery. No, that child was seen as a sacred gift, delivered not by your neighbor, but by the spirit of Carnival itself, by the fertile energy of Baal. It basically protected the entire social structure while making sure the community had a future.
All right, so let's pull all these threads together and see what we've got. So in this theory, carne isn't just meat for eating. It's the flesh, the biological body stripped of all identity. Vale, or goodbye, isn't about saying bye to food. It's about saying goodbye to yourself, your name, your social rules, everything. And Baal, the god bull, he's the engine behind it all, the primal fertile energy that guides the whole ritual.
So when you put it all together, Carnival becomes this incredible ritual. It's where people say goodbye, vale, to their identities, to become pure flesh, carne, all guided by the primal, fertile energy of Baal. And it's all done for one reason: survival.
So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you see the joyful chaos of Carnival and you see that simple, smiling mask, will you just see a party favor? Or will you see something else? A relic from a time when a party was also a desperate act of survival, an ancient tool designed for the most basic, fundamental purpose there is: